We've now owned a Tesla Model Y for a few months, and stop me if you've heard this one before, but Edmunds has actually owned a lot of Tesla vehicles. We've had a Model S, a Model X, 2 Model 3s, and now the Model Y. So we're in a position where we fully understand the benefits and merits that Tesla brings to the industry. And so in this video, my dog's gonna come in and rattle her chain. And I thought in this video, we'd take a look at some of the trends that Tesla's established that we wish the rest of the automotive industry would follow. Call it a top 10 or top 12 or top 13. I actually haven't counted them. That's a problem for the post team. Anyway, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and go to edmunds.com for more information on these kind of cars. One of the first things you notice when you hop in a Tesla is there's no start button. There's no push button to turn it on. All cars out there have a button or an ignition that you put a key into and turn, because all cars have a starter. With an EV, you don't have any of that. You don't have a gasoline engine, so you don't need a starter. You don't have a transmission most of the time. So what do you need a start button for? The way Tesla does it is actually pretty ingenious. In order to get a Tesla into gear, you have to put your foot on the brake and then select drive or reverse. Well, the brake then becomes the starter, and that's it. It's ready to go. Every time I hop in a different EV from another manufacturer and I see a start button, it's like, well, you guys are just carrying it over from the past because you feel like people are used to it. So we wish more EV makers would acknowledge the fact that, hey, if you don't have a starter, what do you need a start button for? Seems simple to us. One thing I personally like about Tesla is that they all have column mounted shifters. If you can't have a manual transmission, and you don't because you're an EV and there's no transmission for the majority of cases, the column is, in my mind, the best place for a shifter because it's both out of the way and easy to reach. I mean, think about how often you're gonna touch a shifter while driving the car. Now, a lot of automakers out there are trying to reinvent the shifter in a lot of different ways. And there are some interesting solutions that people have come up with, but I feel like at best, they're just getting to the point that traditional shifters were already at. One of my biggest pet peeves with all things mechanical is when the makers of a thing try to pretend that that thing is a different thing. For example, fake engine noises. There are a lot of EVs out there that have some sort of augmented sound for acceleration, and I just don't think it's necessary. Let the thing be the thing. If your EV doesn't make a ton of traditional engine sounds because it doesn't have an intake and it doesn't have an exhaust and it doesn't have that mechanic noise, don't try to fake it. Just let the EV make the EV noises, which in the case of a lot of Teslas is kind of a satisfying high-pitched whir when you really stomp on it.
Oh yeah.
And it sounds kind of cool. Boost what you have and embrace what you have. Don't try to pretend it's something that it isn't. The supercharger network is really one of the biggest advantages of getting a Tesla. Getting access to that charging infrastructure is really, really good for a lot of reasons. First, I'll caveat and say it's our belief that and recommendation that if you are buying an EV, the best way to use it is to charge it at home, so you leave most mornings with a full tank, quote unquote. But all charging networks give you the peace of mind of, hey, if I need to drive longer than I have range for, I can charge it at this location. And you know, when life throws curveballs at you, having access to these charging networks can help. But beyond that, let's get back to the supercharger network. It has 3 key advantages over what else is out there. One, it's baked into the Tesla ecosystem. So it's fully integrated with the car's electronics and your Tesla account, and all your billing is all set up. When you're using the navigation system, it'll tell you, hey, this is the nearest station. You can plan your route based on that, just using Tesla's software, which is really cool. And that just makes for a really coherent, cohesive experience. They have to juggle a lot of different things in order to just make your route more simple. 2, the size and the continual rollout of the network basically gives more access to more people, and that makes EV ownership easier. It's one less hurdle or speed bump in your mind you have to deal with when you're deciding to buy an EV for yourself and the family. 3, and I think most importantly, is that the charging experience is the same from station to station. And we haven't experienced that with third-party charging networks. We showed up at a station and the charging rate was way lower than it should have been. We've showed up at some and the station was just not operable. And that's a real problem when you're dealing with an EV. Imagine showing up to a gas station with 20 miles of range and it's the only gas station in a 50-mile radius and all the pumps are done. That can be a really nerve-wracking experience with an EV. So we admire that with Tesla, the experience is more cohesive across all the networks that we've been to, all the charging stations that we've been to. It makes the experience seamless. Most of these charging stations aren't set up for towing. So if you do plan to tow with your EV, be it the Model X, the Y has some limited capability, and the Cybertruck has some promised capability, that could be a big hurdle when you want to charge with a trailer. It can be quite a bit of a pain. We've tested that with the Model X. But let's move on to the next one. We've gone on and on about how much fun EVs are to drive because of how quickly they respond to when you press on the accelerator. We've also talked about how enjoyable it is to experience regenerative braking that EVs deliver when you come off the accelerator. And I thought I'd go into a bit more detail about why that's so much fun. If you've driven a manual transmission before, I know it's a smaller number every day, but in a manual, when you're driving along and you're in gear and you release the gas pedal and you keep your foot off the clutch, you start slowing down through what's called engine braking. Now that's the inertia of the engine literally slowing the car down as the engine speed decreases. The experience is similar in an EV, although it can be far more aggressive, which is really satisfying. And the way it works is really intuitive to the point where I'm driving around in traffic, normal traffic, not stop and go or not in a panic situation, that I seldom actually touch the brake pedal. The Teslas will allow you to slow down to a stop when you enable the features that allow you to do so. You can bias and adjust all this stuff to your preferences. A lot of EV automakers don't embrace this as much as they should, where they feel like some customers may not be used to the sensation, or for whatever reason. Some automakers give you the ability to change the intensity of that regenerative braking, but then they default to the least aggressive setting every time you turn the car off and on. Why? Just let me use the most regenerative braking power I can. Let me control it, because once you get used to it, which happens fairly quickly, you realize, oh, this is the way to drive. It's really, really nice to control the speed of your vehicle that way. Something that a few car makers still haven't figured out these days is that everybody has a phone, and most phones these days are massive. A lot of car makers have given you a place to put it in the car, but they haven't really thought through what the wiring setup looks like. I like the Tesla layout because there is a side-by-side place for your phone and the passenger's phone. And in the Model Y, there's wireless charging there too. And what's great about the setup is they've allowed wire pass-throughs underneath that go to 2 USB ports. So you can plug in whatever wire you want, run it through, and it just looks really clean. It's a really nice solution. All Teslas have a dash cam system built into the car. It's a really neat, clever setup where the external facing cameras, front, side, rear, can continuously log video to a thumb drive that you plug into one of the USB ports. One of my favorite features is an option called Record on Honk, where it specifically highlights a segment of video. I forget the exact time of how long it'll record, but it'll mark that video when you honk. And if you think about that, you realize how ingenious that is. But anyway, dash cam is great, and having it built into the car from the factory is even better. It also gives what Tesla calls Sentry mode, and this is basically a dash cam for when you park the car and walk away. It uses proximity sensors to activate the cameras and even motion sensors on the car. If you fear that your car is going to get vandalized, or you're worried about somebody bumping into it, the cameras record it all. And that's great. That's really neat. It does have some downsides. The biggest is range. Leaving on Sentry mode will reduce your range. And this is the only one that I can think of that is from the factory, set up and ready to go. Really, really clever. I've critiqued the Tesla app previously for when it doesn't work, and that can be a big pain in the butt. The majority of times though, it does work, and the breadth of capability the app has over your car is nearly unparalleled. For one, you use the app as your key. It's how you get in and out of the car. And I love the fact that you can adjust the climate settings from outside the vehicle. You can use the app to unlock the doors, unlock the trunk, unlock the frunk. You can set a top speed. You can make it go in and out of valet mode. You can use the summon feature. Now, we don't really recommend using the summon feature, but again, another topic. But overall, this app is worth highlighting because it's pretty smooth and responsive, and that breadth of control is really satisfying. It used to be you bought a car and that was it. The car was that way and didn't change until you sold it. Not so much with Tesla. Over-the-air updates are a unique addition to the automotive landscape, right? And the experience is very similar, I mentioned in a previous video, to a big feature update to your phone or favorite video game. There are some problems that can be associated with that, and you should watch our previous video if you want more detail on that. But I want to talk about the upsides of the experience, because when you know, if you're following the Tesla communities, like some of us do, and you know a big feature update is incoming, like improvements to the UI, or improvements to autopilot, or improvements to other features within the vehicle, it can be really exciting when that update is happening. You wake up in the morning, you look at your phone to see if the notifications appeared that it's time to update your car, you get it going, you get your car connected to the Wi-Fi, and anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour later, you have new toys to play with inside the car that you've owned for a month, a year, 3 years. It adds a unique element to traditional vehicle ownership. You really have to admire the way you buy a Tesla. For one, there aren't a lot of trim levels or options. You basically choose the amount of range that you want and whether you want it to be ridiculously fast or not. And then you could basically choose colors, you might get wheel options and a couple other things. But the simplicity of the option structure is really neat. It makes buying the car very easy, and so too does the process of actually buying the car. You don't have to go anywhere. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. It's really, really simple and straightforward. If you like to haggle, sorry, not gonna have any fun buying a Tesla. But for the majority of people who, in my experience from formerly selling cars, this makes it really easy once you decide to buy the car. So too is the trade-in process. We've had some hiccups with it with our second Model 3, but overall, it's nice to just be able to supply your vehicle's information that you want to trade in, they shoot you a number, and that's it. The delivery process is really neat too. Once the car's ready for pickup, you get scheduled a time, you go into a delivery center, somebody walks you through the main features of your car. This is how it works outside of the coronavirus stuff. And then you're off with your car. It's that simple, it's that straightforward, and it's something that would benefit a lot of automakers if they could do something similar. So that wraps up this video of the things that Tesla is doing with their cars that we wish became trends in the automotive industry. I'm sure we missed your favorite thing. Be sure to sound off in the comments below. Also, like and subscribe, and be sure to visit edmunds.com for all your car buying and research needs. Thanks for watching.